my cabin, where outside my cabin is damp and wet and still raining. Even though my weather app told me it wasn't going to rain. Starting to think that after 10 years of being wrong, my weather app isn't reliable. But I don't want to be too hasty on that. Um, to fight the rain, obviously, I got to keep a good fire going. And cooking a lot of dog food these days, too. I was feeding a lot of dry dog food, so it feels good to finally have food, like real food, like meat, not that store bought garbage. Somebody had a couple livestock animals that they had to bring out here. We put them down, and then two people contacted me because they're emptying out their freezer. So I've got a bunch of deer meat and livestock meat for the dogs. So now I can feed them with a clear conscience. I feel bad when I use the dry dog food because it's like feeding them McDonald's, and I want these dogs to be happy and healthy, which they are. Man, this past summer I thought my dogs were on their last year, and now that it's cold out, Maddie's like she's lost 5 years. Um, like she's 5 years younger. She's running around a lot, and hanging out outside, so that's nice. Um, Not Sparta. I mean, Sparta still likes going for walks, but she's like me. She doesn't handle the cold so well, which kind of sucks. We don't handle the cold or the heat well. Guess I'm just a big old wuss. Hey, good morning, Craig. Morning, Saxon 8 from Maine. Appreciate you guys reminding me. You'd think I'd be able to remember that. Hey, Chris, welcome. Uh, Chris has been posting a lot of cool photos of his Old West garb. So, let's see. Um, yeah, they keep saying it's going to stop raining. I need it to stop raining because I didn't know my tarp was going to leak. So, I got to pull. I covered the top roof last week, last Saturday. I was working on it during the live video. And I covered it. And then I got a drip leaking out of my plywood. So that's frustrating. At least it's not going down the walls, I hope. So I got to take that off, dry it out, and then do a better job with the roof. So that's kind of frustrating. Uh, I hate the rain. I like because of how dry it is. I like the rain when not like 2 days, 2 weeks or 3 weeks of nonstop rain. Well, on rain, it's kind of annoying for me. I'm not a rain guy. I like the desert. Anyway, it's good though. I mean, I hope we get a lot of rain and a lot of snow this winter and spring. That's what I hope for because we are in the desert and that's how we get our water the natural way. The unnatural way is irrigating, which is also great, and I got that on this property. This is how I make my coffee. There's not really room. Hopefully that stays. There's not room on top for both. Not really. There's a little bit of room there, but it would take a long time. So I put it right inside, especially in the morning when I want my coffee like that. And it still takes too long. But at least it's a lot faster and more reliable. If I prop it up and it doesn't fall over. I had a while where it kept falling over every morning. And so then I brought the burner in. I was using the burner for a little while. Yep. So it's good to be back live Saturday morning. I've been up since 4 a.m. Pretty much in the wintertime. I love it. It's relaxing. I think I fell asleep last night around 6:45 or 7. I'm not sure. I lay in bed watching a TV show on my phone. Wake up feeling pretty rested, and it's only 9:30 at night. And then I woke up at 3:45, and I slept pretty well. I left the door open last night because the dang dogs, they keep waking me up through the night if I don't if I've got the door closed, because they decided it's urgent that they go outside, and then I got to wait for them to come back inside. So it's a restless night. But last night I left the door open, mostly because it was so dang hot in here. I had to leave it open, and then I just left it open all night and got a better night's sleep that way. So I think one year, one year I started putting her in the truck so that she'd sleep in the truck and not wake me up. I might have to do that again. Coffee, 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 coffee. I don't think I've ever told on this channel. When I went to India, we took the train down the eastern coastline to a place called Andhra Pradesh. And the train was such an experience. They had all throughout the night, every hour, every 45 minutes, it didn't matter if you were asleep or not, they had a guy coming through going, coffee, 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 coffee. And I'm not even exaggerating it. Because they, in India, their word for coffee is K-A-F-I, so it's pronounced the same but spelled different. And, you know, because I think it's a British, I think it comes from the British. And anyway, so they'd go through there going, coffee, 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 coffee. Me and the kids that were with the family that I traveled, that I went over there with, we thought that was so funny. I should be making tea. I forgot about that. Anyway, let's see. What can we say that's really interesting? Because people are going away. I thought they'd want to hear about my lifestyle. Yeah, when it rains, I pretty much hide out. There ain't a whole lot I can do. But I do have to go and chop firewood. And I bought some of this kind of firewood. I really love burning. Around here, this would be Doug fir. It's also called red fir. I think they call it red fir when it's lumber, Doug fir when it's growing in the forest. And that's what our lumber and our pallets are made out of, and it makes darn good firewood, especially when it's already cut like that. So I've got a pile of that I bought from a guy. He brought it out and dumped it for me. So that's some of my firewood, because in a small fireplace like this, it's sometimes difficult to keep these bad boys burning. This is elm, cheap crappy firewood, but I love it because it burns slow, leaves coals, and it burns pretty hot. Ah, crap. My pot fell over. The elm burns pretty hot. And, but if there's not enough coals, then it can be hard to keep the bigger stuff burning. Like this is medium sized. And for my stove, I would say this is a big piece. So once it's nice and hot in there with good coals, then I'll put this in. But then sometimes I got to use that lumber scraps. Lift up the big chunk, put the lumber scraps underneath to get it burning again. Kind of frustrating. Also, my stove's falling apart. I don't know if you can see that light back there. See that light? That's because the back is... There's a gap. Well, I guess the gap's only about that big on both sides. And then I got a gap here in my... So, a lot of people would freak out about that. But, you know, I lived in a teepee where it was an open fire. So I don't know why people are so concerned about a wood stove with a hole in it, because it's still way more enclosed than my teepee fire was. I mean, the problem is if you close this place up airtight, obviously. But I intentionally left gaps in the door. And there, now I got a good boil going. So I intentionally left gaps in the door. But I do need a wood stove. It'd be nice, because the annoying part is that in the morning when I'm starting my fire, it's hard to get it hard to keep it hot because it's, you know, a new fire. Hey, somebody liked the live video. Thank you for the like. Because it's hard to get it nice and hot so it smokes. The best way to stop smoke is a hot fire, but a hot fire can take time, especially on a small wood stove like that. So anyway, and because if I fail to prepare the wood the night before with enough kindling, anyway, all that to say, I need to find a wood stove, but I don't want to pay over $100 for a wood stove, and that's kind of a problem. I thought about making a brick stove in here, but I don't want to mess with mortar, and I'm afraid that smoke would leak out of the edges because it wouldn't be airtight. But it'd be nice because the bricks would get nice and warm and then keep me warm through the night. I've decided I don't use a fire through the night. I don't even bother. That way I don't have to mess around with making sure I got enough air, you know, oxygen. Because one time I did leave with the dogs. Nobody was in here. And I had the fire going. I think that was when I went to town. Came back home and there was so much smoke in here that my that thing was going off. So it was interesting to for one, know that my little detector works, and two, to see how much it takes. So anyway, as you all know, everything I do is an experiment. Oh. All right, I should have better service. It was better, but looks like now I'm losing y'all. So let's see. Just hang tight here. Technical difficulties until I can afford Elon Musk internet, as I like to call it, because I always forget the name of it. Starlink. One day I'll have Starlink. All right. Back to the comments. Actually, let's see here. There we go. I like having the fireplace in the back. That sets the ambiance. I like a good old iron fireplace with a lot of meat on the stove. Very comforting to have firewood and meat. All right, let's see. Doug Fur just finished watching Twin Peaks first season. Oh, cool. Yeah. Twin Peaks is right out there amongst the Doug Fir with a little bit of tamarack and pine. Hey, Jimmy Magnum, glad you made it. Yep, we're only 15 minutes in. Usually we go about 40, 45 minutes. Jennifer, hey, welcome, you and Royce, I assume. That's about comedy. Cool. I'll give a comedy update here in a little bit. Yes, okay, Jeremiah pointed out another reason. Jeremiah Sinner, Jeremiah, I had no idea that you gave regular updates on your Facebook account. I'm kind of bummed I've been missing out all this time. So Jeremiah does reenacting. He's got a house that he's furnished, and he does regular updates. I don't know if he wants people following him on Facebook, but I'm glad that I started. I love seeing it. And he also uses a wood stove. And you're right, that's the other problem. I can't close this down that he pointed out just now. I can't close this down to keep it from burning fast. Like, for those who don't know, the technique for a wood stove is burn it in there. And then you put a big chunk, shut it down as much as you can, and then it burns really slowly. Like a stove this size, if I get 2 hours out of it, I'd be thrilled. With my other stove in my other cabin, I was able to get 8 hours for a little while, but it also takes the right kind of firewood. And then I was able to sleep all night with it. Anyway, so yeah, that's the other reason I need a good stove, so I can use it properly. But again, last 2 years ago, I was in a teepee, and this is far better than a teepee with the open fire. So, That's one way of looking at it. But yes, I do want a good wood stove. Thanks for pointing that out. Tell a joke. I don't tell jokes on demand. Not because I'm not willing to, like I don't care. But the problem with comedy is it's all about timing. You know, as Steve Martin said, comedy is about timing. It's all about timing. And so when somebody says tell a joke, that sets up a okay, impress me type of a setting. And comedy, one part of comedy is all about surprise. Or so when you set up somebody as a judge, then it's like going uphill. You don't want to do that. So I did do it successfully in Texas, though. I went to a show. Well, no, it was an open mic in a coffee shop in Texas. And they said, tell me something funny. I said, oh, no, I don't do that. And they said, yeah, I get it. They were cool guys. And then I went ahead and asked them about something that they just thought I was making small talk. I asked them about a TV show, and then it turned into a joke. So I was able to totally surprise them after I had told them I wouldn't, and then acted like I was making small talk. So that worked out really well. Then I tried that same joke, same technique at a place, and it didn't work so well. I don't know. There's something also about the freshness of trying something for the first time. There's a lot of challenge to doing comedy. Like you can have a joke that kills, and then you get tired of it, and then it doesn't kill anymore. And I think that it's like they say, the biggest part of communication is your tone. And I think that it really conveys when you are tired of something. You know, if like when I'm excited about a joke, it conveys and it makes a difference. The biggest part of doing comedy, I think, is people getting caught up with what you're doing. Anyway, cheers, folks. This is my oh yeah, Poland. This is my Poland pottery. I love this stuff. Not one of my favorites. I like it when they have more blue in it, but this is what I found at a thrift store. Used to be able to find it really cheap, and then it became popular. Like cheap on eBay, and then it became popular. Alright, let's see. So anyway, that's why I don't tell jokes, but no problem if you ask. Big lad, God bless your soul. Thank you, Big J. Amish community. Yeah, I have a joke about how I basically live like I'm Amish, except for I don't have the work ethic or the family. So it's like I'm homeless. However, I quit using that joke because it's not funny enough. I don't get enough laughs out of it. Oh, cool. Big J. Yeah, I love it when Red Dead Redemption people like my channel. I mean, I love it when anybody likes my channel, but I think it's cool because I love that game. I don't play it, but it's just kind of satisfying when people who play the game find it, because when I first got into this, it was the first game, and I was always imagining, you know, shooting a hawk out of the air, shooting a snake from my horse. Oh yeah, Arthur Morgan. I always forget that name. All right, cheers again. My coffee is so good. All right. Well, I'm going to make for videos. Oh, yeah. All right, so I moved my cabin. I'll tell you that first. There's the rooster. See if we can see him. There he is. There we got a glimpse of him. Yeah, I moved the cabin away from the creek because I felt like it's colder right by the creek and more humidity off the creek, even though I'm only like 30 feet away from it. Speaking of the creek, I got in the creek yesterday, and I got in the creek, I think 3 days ago or something. And now the thing is, I am getting a lot of benefit from the creek, And first I hang out in here and I get all sweaty. It gets like a sauna in here, and I sit up on my bed where I'm up in the warmer air. And so I get nice and hot, and then I go get in the creek. But even then, like I can feel my body. It's not because I'm like cold and uncomfortable. It's because like it feels like my body is gonna start into hypothermia if I don't get out. And so like it gets painful. And so I hop out. And then, of course, the first thing I think is, okay, got to get into the cabin where it's warm. But by the time I get over here, I actually feel warm. It's really funny. I can actually feel better. I feel better after the creek than before it. So I'll even stop, take a leak, go pet the dog. Oh, and I'm buck naked when I do it too. So even though it was raining and cold out, I feel good. Um, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm starting hypothermia. But basically, what I'm saying is I don't have to towel off to warm up. I don't have to come into the cabin. I actually stay warm. So I think it's doing me some good. I think it's actually helping me. I think I'm adapting. Even though I can barely stay 7 seconds in the water, I think that's about what I'm staying. I count 100, 100, 100, but I'm counting faster than a second. And but at least I got some idea to know how long I was there. And so anyway, I think I'm doing a benefit. And then yesterday I wanted to bathe, but I stood in here and hawed, dried off, tried to soap myself down. Because when I bathe, the way I do it is I get in, get out, soap myself down, get in, rinse off. So I thought, well, maybe, but anyway, I did get in a second time yesterday and it felt good. So I might do that. Since I can't stay in very long, I might just go in a couple times. If I'd had the cabin warmer this morning, I kind of wanted to try it before the video. Because it really is good for the brain and everything. Gets me more energized. The Homeless Cowboy. Hey, that is a good name for a channel. Cold showers are also amazing for you, but takes a while getting into, and it never seems to get easier. Yeah, I tried cold showers before, and it does suck, but it is good. I've known people that do it, so I mean, if that's all somebody has, I think I'd almost prefer the bathtub. But I also found that mentally is a big part of it. So when I get in the summertime and it's kind of easy, you get that muscle memory or neural memory, whichever one you want to call it, of getting into the creek. So now when I get into the creek, all of that's familiar and it just feels normal and it helps the psychologically to do it. So that's one way. Cool. Homemade butter. Royce, where did you find a farmer to get milk from, or did you try milk from the store? Either way, let me know how it worked out. Oh, Jeremiah, do you have a YouTube channel also? I guess I haven't checked, but good. Glad to hear that, Big J. So I've also got more of a view here. I love my spot by the creek. I was like, my trailer, my porch, as I call it, was hanging over like right next to the creek, so I could hear it loudly, and it was nice. But that'll be nice for next year when it warms up again. Now I've got a view down in the mountains, which I really kind of miss. I'm longing for my other property right now. So I'm still reading this book. This is a history of, well, actually, it's about 20 miles. Let's see. I'd call it southwest in an area that we call Tampico. There's a creek that flows through there, and it's got a fork. One fork goes one way into the mountains, the other fork goes the other, and it's where the grassy sagebrush transitions into pine woods and rolling hills. Well, steeper hills. We've got rolling hills before that. Anyway, these folks, they grew up, they lived all over the place, but the main place they lived was out there. And she gives an account of when they came out here. She was 6 years old in 1876. And, and she writes about hers. I'm up to 1890, no, 1902, 1903 is what I'm up to. And it's fascinating. She talks about how, oh, yeah, okay, so the place that I used to camp, that I go camping with my horses and where I've gone up to the lake, catch fish, that's called, it's a meadow area. And her family is the one that initially got that land. So that's a land that was passed down from this family to their grandkids, great grandkids, I suppose by now, maybe great great grandkids by now. I'm not sure. And the one who passed away recently, he signed it. I think it was recently. One of them signed it over to the government saying that he wanted to keep his private property open to horse people. Also, backpackers use it, but that's why there's a gate, and you can't take motorized roads up through his property to the wilderness property because he's kept it closed off for specifically for horse people, and that's why they have camping things set up for horse people to go up and camp. But like I say, backpackers use it too. They basically no motorized vehicles. And so pretty dang cool that he did that because there's these huge meadows up there and lots of grass for your horses, and that's where you can take off from there into multiple trails up into the mountains. And he took what was called a squatter's claim back then. I don't know the technical details of a squatter's claim, but this guy took a squatter's claim to graze cattle. So they used to go from their home that I described near where the pine trees begin. They used to drive cattle and horses up there in May or June, which is early. There would still be a lot of snow. They talk about once when they got stuck in a snowstorm trying to go over. And it's just fascinating the way these people lived. Like, she went up, the gal that wrote it, she went up with her brother because her brother would drive the cattle up there and stay all summer. And, she decided to go up there with her and a friend. I mean, just the freedom that they had. Her and her friend says, let's just go up there for the summer. And they had a milk cow. And so they spent the summer up there making milk and camping out. And came home, not making milk, making butter from the milk. And they came home, and she had like 100 pounds of butter that they had made all summer. And then she went off to teach school in what we call the Tri-Cities, which is about an hour and a half from here. And her family used that butter and up until it lasted until like Christmas time. So it's just fascinating reading about that stuff, the way they lived. It was just so much fun, it seems. Like I said, just a lot of freedom. Jeremiah does have a YouTube channel, but Facebook is more active. Yeah, so I recommend following him. I think I was following you, though, and I didn't even see your updates until I friended you. So, something to think about. Hey, Casey, glad you made it. I'm assuming that's Casey James, Idaho. You've been on before. He does mountain man stuff. He's over in Idaho, and he's been hunting. And I think you got a deer recently, which he'll probably turn into buckskin. And yeah, good. All right. There's a couple Caseys. I think there's another Casey James that follows me. But yeah, good. Thanks, Case. Glad you're here. Chris, he says, I'm falling in love with reading all over again when I started reading True Life Accounts into the midway. Yeah, reading these first-hand accounts is just amazing. It's like being transported into another time. And then I get depressed when I remember where I live. But then I just remember all the health care that we have and how easy it is to buy rice, and then I feel better again. But anyway, I'm going to do some videos. I keep threatening. The Wealth of Nations. I'm going to do like 3 videos on the first 3 chapters of this. And then we'll see. I might continue. I don't know. And it all correlates. Because people have asked me, I mentioned this last week. People have asked me to do videos on what I've learned since going off grid, as I call it, leaving society. And one of the main things that stands out is the Wealth of Nations. And then I want to do I might do a commentary on this as I read it. However, it'll also be interesting to see where he goes with his philosophy. That's Nietzsche's first philosophy, who is accredited for ending Christianity, but he didn't. He's the one that said God is dead, but he was only looking at his at society around him and declaring what he observed. It was more the Enlightenment that sent us down that direction, down that path. And anyway, that's stuff that I want to talk about from leaving society. So it'll be a whole lot different. It's controversial stuff, but it shouldn't be controversial because should just be able to share ideas. No deer yet. Had a big buck walk out in front of me after antler season closed. Okay, yeah, I saw that post. That sucks. So the day after antler season ended, Casey the next day saw a big old buck with nice antlers. But at least you got a doe season. We don't have that around here unless you get special draw for it. And it's about time to get roadkill deer. I could probably get 3 or 4 deer this year. I might have missed a good one the other day. I forget to bring my knife with me sometimes. I think it was even an elk. I think it was a cow elk. And it looked like it was recent. So that's how I get my deer meat. And then if I go to Texas, this time I'm going to go prepared. I was in Texas this time last year. I was driving down this highway, and it was like there was a deer every 100 yards. It was amazing. Kind of sad. I mean, I don't like seeing animals like that, but as long as they're there. And had I been more prepared, I could have been living off of deer meat. But it was also pretty warm when I was down there, so it was hard to keep it. This year, if I go, I'm going to take my cooler. Because I've learned that with my van and my cooler, I can keep it, the ice frozen for like 5 days. So, oh yeah, Jennifer asked how comedy's doing. So, comedy's okay. The frustrating thing about comedy is the best way to get good is by doing comedy all the time. Like I talked to this one guy who, he's, I think, 10 or 15 years older than me, so he was alive during the scene when I was still a kid. And he became a writer for professional shows and stuff, and professional comedians, so he's been in the scene. He knew Tony Hinchcliffe back when Tony Hinchcliffe was just a door guy or whatever, and and just annoying, and didn't have his show. So anyway, and he was telling me how it used to be that if you're a comedian, you could get a show from Wednesday to Sunday, because that's how busy the clubs were, and they had shows just and then sometimes Friday and Saturday they had 2 shows. So if you think about that, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Friday, Saturday, that's 6 shows in a week that a person could do. And if I was doing it that much, I'd be getting really good. And so it's kind of frustrating not being able to get booked. And then sometimes when I get booked, it's just for a 10-minute set, which is still a really good opportunity, but, it's like 1/3 the amount of time. than if you get booked for a 30-minute set. So it's kind of tough. A big part of doing comedy is just constantly trying to get booked. And I need to get a video made so that I can send that out to clubs, and then clubs will probably start booking me if I get that video made. So that's where I'm at with comedy. Hopefully I get that video made, and then, except then to get to clubs, then I gotta drive a lot. Justin asks, do you have to get a tag from law enforcement to pick up roadkill deer? Yes, you gotta get a scavenger tag. Yeah. Yebo. Yebo is yes in Zulu. Well, I guess I'm not going to get into the details on these books, but we'll see how many subscribers I lose when I start doing these videos. This guy is difficult to read. Also, he initially wrote in German. And from studying the Bible, I learned how difficult it is to, and how much respect to give for the original language. And so I ordered 2 different copies of this. One, the guy does a more literal translation into English, and the other guy does more, it's called a more dynamic translation, where he, instead of going accurately word for word, he goes more for, this is what the concept. So I'm going to get those to see if I can get a little more closer understanding of what he was saying in his original German language, because I'm not going to learn German. But it's not easy to read. Also, both of these guys, it's like it was the common style to write back then. Like, the first 3 chapters of this, you could probably write in 2 paragraphs, because he just belabors every point. Which, I get it, you want to be clear. Also, I think that part of that is when it's a new idea, because, you know, when he was writing, it was a new idea. And so he had to help people get into this new mindset where we all live within capitalism. So the stuff he's talking about is more like, oh yeah, I get that, because that's how we live. That's what we understand. So I guess that's probably a big factor. But I feel like he could have. Yeah, so that's probably why. But reading it now, it's like, why am I reading 3 pages of what could be just 1 chapter? Jennifer, you think the butter was a success? Were you not there? Did he not share it with you? Did he go down into the storm room to eat the butter alone? Storm cellar, I guess is what I'm trying to say. They live where there's they have tornadoes. Yeah, very verbose. Very contrasting to the Bible. What they say about the Bible is that a lot of literature people are. I know at the college I went to, there was a whole class on the Bible because of how concise it is and conveying big concepts concisely. And that's what I've been practicing doing on Facebook for years, is how to convey clearly an idea with the least amount of words. Not the least amount, but as concise as necessary. And I guess Twitter would be that way too. But I never got into Twitter. There, you can say the Bible on the video and suddenly people start dropping. That's how polarizing. Well, be careful, because now that Trump's in office, everybody's going to be forced to drive around with a Bible in their car and quote the 10 Commandments. So better get prepared, people. It's a funny time we live in. It's interesting time. Interesting. I'm glad to be living the way I am. I just kind of watch society on Facebook. But I'm not a part of it. So I commentate on it, and I critique it, and I think about how happy I am to be outside of it. Prince Albert in the can. No, I don't, but I don't get why that's a joke. Prince Albert. That's tobacco, isn't it? Yeah. So fortunately, when it's rainy like this, and it was windy, it was so dang cold. It was annoying. Now it's not so cold, and but it's rainy and damp. So fortunately, I lead enough leisure that as long as I cut firewood and cook meat, then I can relax inside, which means I should spend more time studying. I've been trying to be more disciplined with my studying, which is more what I'm into than most people who live this way who get into gardening and being self sufficient, which I would like to be self sufficient, but it's less priority to me than what I'm studying. That's what I really like. Oh, and my comedy. I keep tweaking my comedy set. I've got I had to cut out a part because I just wasn't making it work. So now I'm more like at 25, 26 minutes. And depends on how much time I can spend talking to the crowd, which I don't do much of, but they love it. And in a club, that is kind of fun. A lot of people hate crowd work. And I think crowd work is really impressive when it's done well. But when it's just memorizing the stuff, then sometimes it's like too obviously set up as far as crowd work goes. Like I like that one guy that a lot of people hate on because he's internet famous. I think he's really impressive. But sometimes if you do crowd work, if you see crowd work where it's like they have a canned joke and it clearly doesn't apply to the people and they just tried hard to do a mediocre setup so that they could use the joke, then it's the best stuff is when it's totally spontaneous, like genuinely. I've done very little of it, but it's great when it works. Hey, Arizona Traditional Outfitters. Been wondering about you because I'm going to try to spend more time in Arizona this winter. Planning to come down January and February. And this time I'm going to hope to have more time. Last year went poorly for me. My dad had passed away, and I think it was in September, and then my dog died when I was in Texas, and I couldn't get home fast enough. Update on the butter. All I did was bought a small thing of whipping cream and put it in a blender for about 20 minutes and pulled it out and it's super soft. So I'm going to put it. Oh, yeah. Well, and after it becomes butter, then you gotta separate the water out. I figured it's rice. I got that from the first person. Well, what you can do is you knead it. You probably saw that in videos. You knead it to get the moisture out of the butter to separate it. But yeah, keeping it cool, like what I was doing and I found this useful. As soon as it solidified into butter, then I put it in the cooler to make it more firm, and then it was easier to knead it. And I didn't bother with it until it cooled off. Just had neck surgery. Oh my gosh. Hope you're all right. Will do. I'll hit you up. Thank you. Appreciate that. Hopefully we can make something happen. So, all right, the numbers are back up because I haven't said Bible in a while. Let's see if they drop down again. It's funny how controversial that is. People just go off on a rant, which is why I want to discuss Christianity as the philosophies and ideas that are beneficial without having to get into the controversial stuff. Because, the last 8 years we just went through, there we go, the numbers are dropping again. The last 8 years we went through, we could have used a whole lot more of the golden rule. Yeah, would have made living a whole lot better. So, anyway, I'm hate-filled fighting that we seem to prefer lately. Oh, which reminds me, everybody's still prepping, getting ready. I'm holding my breath until January 20th. Because recently, Biden tried to ramp up the war by giving Ukraine the ability to shoot long-range missiles into Russia. Just absolutely asinine. And then we also had word before the election that they were going to try to overturn the Department of Justice's decision on Trump to try to invalidate his election. And so between ramping up the war and Putin talking about threatening again with nuclear weapons, because if you remember, Trump was saying he's going to end the war while he's still president-elect. And so, I mean, it kind of looks like that's why they started ramping up the war, was just to keep Trump from stopping it. And if you guys think that wars are legitimate, then you really need to listen to my channel's upcoming videos in the future, because these wars are not needed. They're not American. They're not part of the American ideal. So, anyway, I hope you guys are still getting ready, because once we can get through January, then things should be good. Hey, thanks, Casey. Glad you're agreeing. I try and live my life around the Bible. I believe we should all be self-critical, and that's why I criticize this stuff. Not because, I'm not going to criticize, not going to do anything about ideologies that I don't even agree with. I think it's important to be self-critical and improve all the time. That way the criticism from outsiders can't take hold. Talking about reading. Have you ever read any Louis L'Amour Westerns? He has the book Over on the Dry Side. Oh, funny. Over on the Dry Side is one of my absolute favorites. Yes, I used to love Louis L'Amour when I was a teenager, and Over on the Dry Side, there was two that were my favorites, and Over on the Dry Side was one of them. And I don't read Louis L'Amour anymore. I got tons of respect for him, but he kind of became formulaic with his writing, and there's other writers like Mike Blakely, who he gets into way more detail and it's way more realistic. Like, I loved Louis L'Amour. He kind of is almost like Hollywood writing, only not as bad as Hollywood, but you know, like he came up with, I think he came up with that whole idea that stealing a man's horse was worse than murder, which wasn't true. There was so many horse robberies and nobody got hanged for them in the real Old West. So, I mean, tons of respect for Louis L'Amour. I just don't read him anymore. Oh yeah, another guy on Facebook that I'm friends with. He wrote a really cool. He's a Western writer, and I can't remember his name now. But I like. There's a lot of. I think there's a lot of modern writers that have surpassed. But he's like the founding father of Westerns. Now it makes me want to get into it now. Like you said, for winter, for cold winter days, I'd love to be. I might need to find my copy of Over on the Dry Side and read it. That might have even influenced my name, Over on the Wild Side. It probably did. Because I always loved that name, Over on the Dry Side. Found out the hard way, if you've never been through it, you're never ready. Not sure exactly what you mean there, Royce or Jennifer, but it sounds like that saying about how wisdom comes from experience and experience comes from being stupid or whatever. Thanks, Arizona Traditional Outfitters. Don't know if that means you just left or not, but appreciate it. Because my channel's going in a different direction. Kind of similar. My channel's always been about how I live and historical camping. So lately I'm going to be focusing more on the how I live part. But next year I should get back to some camping. I think by then my horses will be ready. I was too optimistic thinking I'd be able to go out camping with them this year. Also, my dogs. I keep forgetting about that. But I don't know. My dogs. I don't know. Um, Jeff Ramblin says, my landlady, what's a history teacher? She taught me that the average ownership of a horse was about a month before it got stolen. Huh. Well, I mean, I don't know that stealing was that common, but yeah. Also, they traded off horses. I mean, there were cases of people. There were cases of people keeping horses because, hey, this is a horse I'm attached to. But it's amazing also to read about. It's frustrating reading about it where a person's like, yeah, I had this horse that was so great, and then I traded him off and got this one. It's like, why? Why don't you just keep the horse that's your favorite? But it was just a different mentality back then. And in a lot of places, you just ride in with a horse to the livery barn, leave it, and take another one, because that's kind of the how horses were seen back then. Oh, cool. Thanks. Yeah, some people like the channel for how I live. Some people, most people come on for the camping. I mention this regularly, but my biggest video has about 100,000 views, and it's every week it's my most watched video, except for like 1 week it wasn't my most watched, and that's what gets me most of my because they. But then I went out and made some horse camping videos. You can find them in my history, and some of them only have 2 or 3,000 views. It's like, well, there I did do some more camping videos, and many views as subscribers. So it's all kind of funny when you get into the stats of it and the analytics. So that's why I just don't focus on it. I try to put I try to put as few ads in it as Facebook as YouTube allows me to. I unclick the mid roll is what they call it. Where do you want ads mid roll? I unclick that so that there aren't any. They used to let us creators unclick before. So I would put all my ads at the end and all of them skippable. And now they don't give us that option. I think they put ads at the beginning. And that's for people who don't pay for YouTube. But I used to do skippable as much as I could. So yeah, thanks Jennifer and Royce. They like my videos. Some people, I do get people who say they love everything I put out. So that's who I'm making the videos for. Print Olive writes about how he had and rode his favorite horse for over 10 years. Print Olive, is that a mistype or was that his name? Where was he, Chris? Charlie Siringo also wrote about having a favorite horse, and Charlie Siringo did a lot of traveling for months on end, and so he would leave his horse. He had a favorite horse that he hung on to, and he left it at somebody's farm. I forget how he lost that horse. I think with him, somebody lost their place and had to move, and then they sold off Charlie's horse because he was like gone for 6 months and they couldn't keep it. But yeah, it did happen. It's just amazing to me when people talk about trading off their horse that they really like. But occasionally it did. The other thing that I'm trying to figure out is side saddle. So this gal, she talks about riding horseback a lot, and she mentions how I think it was her, mentioned how she bought a side saddle. So I don't know if before that she was riding on a side saddle, or if she was riding on it straddle. And now the reason that comes up is because in my other book that I was reading of short stories that people wrote, some woman said, she actually stated, I always rode side saddle as a proper woman should. Which the very fact that she mentions that indicates that it's possible that there were women who weren't riding side saddle. You know, kind of like the whole thing where people post goofy rules, and then the common response is, "I want to know what happened that made them make that rule." And so that's kind of the same concept there. If all the women were riding side saddle, why would she point out that a proper woman should? Now, that's not conclusive because she was also riding in the 1900s when women had transitioned now to riding straddle, no longer side saddle. So it could be that she's comparing it with modern day. But since it was proper at that time, now riding straddle is now proper. It doesn't totally admit. But anyway, it's just little clues like that that it makes me wonder. But the problem is, no woman is going to admit to it. Kind of like how Teddy Blue Abbott was a cowboy, and he scoffed at all the cowboys who wouldn't write about whorehouses. He said, "You'd think that we were all a bunch of saints, the way that these guys write, because most people would edit their writing and leave out the parts about hanging out with whores or whatever else it was that modern society frowned upon." And we know that because Teddy Blue talks about it, and he actually does talk about the whores and how much cowboys, how it fit into cowboy culture. So that's the hard part there. Even if a gal did ride straddle, they're not going to mention it. And so it remains a mystery. But I'm really curious. And as I've talked about with studying history, I leave questions open. Most people go into history to close and find answers. I find what questions remain open. Because there's a lot less answers in history than people want to think. Just because somebody says this is how it was doesn't mean they are studying history correctly. A few times. Cool. What era? And we're by yourself or with friends? I'm hoping that it wasn't necessarily Civil War, but Civil War's badass too. It's just cool when people go outside of that. Craig Curtis says, still in textbooks, when you were released from prison, they gave you a horse and a gun. Did they? Ison Printick Olive, famous cattleman. Teddy Blue rode with his outfit. Oh, cool. Did he write his own book? Riding horse. Riding horse and riding horses. The story of the cowboy. Teddy Blue was funny. He talked about how, what was it, the Buffalo Hunters? They had their own gals in town, but the gals that were for the cowboys wouldn't even pay attention to the Buffalo Hunters. That they were strictly there for the cowboys. And when one town would kick the cowboys and the cattle driving out, because you know the diseases and stuff from the Texas Longhorns, so they'd kick them out, and then the cowboys kept having to move their route westward, is what I understand, and their women would follow from town to town as the cowboys had to go from town to town. That's what Teddy Blue Abbott describes, as I remember. But it's been a while since I read his book. I come from a cowboy and ranch family, and cowgirls rode horses just like the men to get work done. Well, no, I'm talking about in the 1870s and 1880s. I mean, yeah, it was I think it was in the early 1900s that women not riding side saddle became normal. But in the 1800s, side saddle was the most common. But again, the mystery remains how much they did it when they're out here. Oh, cool. Yeah, I need to get that one. Thanks, Chris. Mountain Man. Oh, cool. Yeah, Mountain Man's awesome. Love the Mountain Man era. All right, thanks, Casey. I'll catch you later, man. Oh, and thanks for the invite. I missed that comment. Yeah, hopefully we can get out there and camp with you. Take care, Casey. Casey does more Mountain Man era. I love the Mountain Man era, but as y'all know, I've been focusing on Old West era, as I call it. Um, if I was better at things, I'd have both going on. But I'm more into studying than I am into crafts, arts, and. All right, well, we've gone for an hour. It's still freaking raining. And I checked the forecast, and it said it was supposed to not rain at all overnight. I almost took the tarp off my roof and pulled up some of the wood so I could get it drying out. And I'm glad I didn't do that. Oh, Teddy Blue had his favorite horse too for over 20 years. Now, was that probably not during his cowboying? When did he have it? Was that later in life or early in life? But anyway, yeah. So that's nice to know that favorite horses did happen. But like I said, it's it sucks when you read about this guy talking about how cool his horse is and then he trades it off. But granted, they'd also ride a horse for a couple days, ride it hard, trade it off for a fresh horse. So they were more about traveling. And then you think about how green a lot of these horses must have been. But they also broke them different. There's been a whole lot of hate in the horse world for breaking horses the old-fashioned way, um, and a lot of people they mischaracterize. Like I bought into all that stuff big time. I thought that these guys, I can't remember the names, but I thought that these guys would like go out into the. I'm exaggerating here, but the way that they paint it is as though they went out to a horse, pet it and whispered in its ear just the right way, and then it was all of a sudden tame. And see, you can just work with a horse gently. The fact is that horses will test you. They're like kids. And the way that the old cowboys and Indians still, I found this out in Montana, the old philosophy is, the old term of breaking a horse. It's not as bad necessarily as we think. Now, I don't believe in psychologically hurting a horse or physically, but psychologically like terrorizing it. But I don't think that was the common method. To sum it up, the old method was you get on a horse. I'd always watch these and think, oh man, you wanted it to stop bucking as quick as possible. No, they'd get on the horse with spurs, the green horse. It's never been ridden before. Like there's ways of tying it, holding their ear long enough that you can get on it. You can also see like wild horse races where they're holding on to this horse that's never been ridden before. Indian jumps off one and jumps on the other. It's amazing. So the idea was that you have this horse that you get on its back, and of course it's trying hard to get you off of its back. But you wear these spurs because what the cowboy, the bronc rider, the bronc buster would do was he'd be essentially saying, "Give me all you got. Give me all you got. Give me more. Is that all you got?" And so it's like this fight between the rider and the horse. And he rides it out until that horse finally decides, okay, I can't give anymore. I'm breathing heavy. I've used up all my energy. Which, in a horse mindset, when you've used up all your energy, that means you're toast. Like you can't outrun a pack of wolves once you've used up your energy. You can't even kick the wolves once you've used up the energy. And so at that point, that's when the horse decides, okay, whatever you tell me, that's what I'm gonna do. Because a crow guy, he told me when I asked him about horses, because I try to learn from everybody I can, and he said it's a battle of the spirits. You gotta have more spirit than the horse. And I thought about that now for years. That was in 2018, I think that he told me that. 2017 or 18. And I've thought about that a lot because you don't want to break the spirit. As now we're getting into horse philosophy, and That's also a touchy subject. You don't you don't want to break the spirit of the horse, which is what a lot of people have given breaking to. That's where a horse just looks dejected and just goes wherever you want. I mean, kind of, lifelessly. But when the little bit of cattle work that I've done, it's amazing because it didn't take long before my horse figured out what I was doing. And where now it wasn't me telling him, go here, go there, it was more of working together where the horse realized, oh, we're gathering cows. There's a cow over there. So my horse would look over there, and I'd look over there, and we'd go get it together. That's not a broken spirit. That's a horse that has decided, okay, this guy, I just got to do what this guy says and work with him rather than trying to fight him. So that's what I'm trying to get at, where that style, this is my belief on it, that style of challenging the horse, and the Mongolians do this too. You watch their videos, they've got their long hooks, and they'll get a horse. Like if an American goes over there to buy a horse and travel around on horseback, which is something I want to do, they'll get the horse and then they'll get on it and it starts bucking, but they don't even have it in a pen, and they'll just ride the horse, and it'll take off, and then it finally gives up, saying, "Okay, I can't get rid of this guy. I might as well just figure out what he wants." And he comes back and he rides a tame horse. Versus what I've seen from natural horsemanship, it can be downright dangerous. Now, I like natural horsemanship. I'm not saying it's bad, but it can go too far where it's dangerous, where these people are like, oh, you got to let the horse express itself. And I don't believe that. You can get hurt like that. I almost got hurt because somebody had their horse out here and wasn't taking control of it. And it was her horse, so I, let her take control of her horse, but she wasn't taking control of it. And I was really close to getting hurt by it. And so, anyway, I don't even know why I got onto that. But it's super interesting to me. Now let's see the comments. Just try and tame it down a little. Bronc fighter was also a period term for guys who specialize in horse breaking. Yeah, you're a bronc fighter from the looks of your clothes. He figured me right, I'm a good one, I claim. Do you happen to have a horse just like a dog wants to please his owner? Now, that's one reason I want to ride with you when I come to Arizona, because my horses, I have not achieved that. My gelding was quite the opposite. He wanted to confound his owner. That's why I rehomed him, because that was no fun. Even though he did become a good cow horse, I'm pretty sure his attitude was, well, the sooner I get this done, the sooner I can get back to eating. Like, even though he was a good cow horse, it wasn't like he didn't want to go necessarily. It was more just like it's easier to work than not work. I hope that my mares come around to where they want to go out riding with me. Right now, my mare, I got pretty frustrated with her. I felt like she should trust me to go walking, and she wouldn't. And, I don't have more heart. But you couldn't make your string work. You didn't have a job. Yeah, that's why Charlie Siringo, he wrote his book called 9 months or 1 year or 2 years, whatever he wrote amount of time on the back on the hurricane deck. He on the deck of a wild cayuse or whatever. Because yeah, these cowboys, they had a string of horses and they weren't broke. Uh, yeah, 90% of the time it's the cowboy, not the horse. Yeah, for sure. Same with dogs. This poor woman. I was at the vet with my dog recently, and This woman, her dog, she had a little dog, and oh yeah, I was sitting watching. She says, I'm off to the vet. She says, yeah, he's a scaredy cat. He's scared of everything. And I thought, well, why? And then she walked by me. I was seated by the door, not in the way of the door, just by the door. And on her way out, as she reached for the door handle, she says, excuse me. I'm like, ma'am, you don't have to ask anybody, excuse you. You're on your way out. If I'm in your way, that's on me, not you. So there's good reason that... Okay, I lost you there for a second. It's still slightly raining, but at least the sun's out. And I have no idea if the service is better here or not, but it is definitely better here than over by the creek. There's where I was parked, over there. And the more you come out here, the better it is. So, well, folks, I should probably bring this to an end. And there's my rooster talking to me. Probably wants more food. All right, folks, this has been fun. Gone over an hour. Hope everybody enjoys this. I'm going to try to put out some kind of an intro video soon, and hope that's appreciated. Hope you all find it interesting. It's been fun chatting, everybody. Comments, I appreciate that. And you animal people, glad to have input. Oh, Jimmy Magnum says, one of these days I'm going to fork out the money and get me a nice cowboy hat like yours. Only thing I don't have is a nice hat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I need a new hat. But find a lot of used ones. Just make sure it's a good beaver felt, not too thick like my other white one. But anyway, all right, peace out, Jeff Ramblin'. Peace out, everybody. Appreciate all the comments and all the views, and hope you all have a great weekend. And remember, hey, there's Maximus. Hey, good boy. Oh, he's hungry. I haven't fed him yet. Well, let's take the stairs. All right, folks, remember, life's a lot more fun over on the wild side.